Okay, this is going to be a long video, but it's the big one. This is my FC26 Manager Career Mode wishlist. Now, I don't know how many features there are here, but I think there's like 70 or 80 different things that we need to have added into the game. Now, I don't expect EA to realistically add all these in the next game, but here's just a list from most important to the smaller features that I feel like would impact the game the most. Now, before I get into this list, because I'm going to rattle them off pretty quickly to get through the video, otherwise it will take forever. Now, a lot of the more important features I have made videos about already on my channel, so I'm going to refer to those in this video. I've also created a playlist on my channel as well in terms of my full FC26 wishlist, so all the videos are going to be on there along with some other content on this channel as well. And also with some of these ideas, I will in future make some videos about them in more depth as well. So again, I'll let you know in this video. But yeah, I'm just going to try and rattle through these as quickly as I can. And I'll also be posting this full wish list on my X account as well, so go over there and drop a follow if you haven't already. And don't forget to like this video and let me know in the comments what you most want to see added into the game for FC26. So at number 1, the most important feature that EA can add to FC26 Career Mode, I've already made a video about it. It's the database editor. So at the end of this video, if you want to know more about this, go and check that video out. But basically, this is a way of tackling unrealistic transfers, unrealistic player growth, customizing your own scenarios into the game. This would be where you can edit players yourself. You can improve or you can upgrade or downgrade players at your own leisure. You can edit club budgets, you can transfer players, edit contracts, and just having overall a bit more of a grip on the game and fixing any issues that you find in your save. I think more customization is really important, and a database editor is something that's already been modded into the PC version of FC25, and the people that use it talk so well about it and how it improves the game. So that is something that I really want to see added into the game, and if you've not already watched my video, I would fully recommend that. At number 2, I've got manager transfers. Again, made another video. It was the first one I posted on this channel, but kind of self-explanatory. I want to see managers get sacked. I want to see them change jobs, retire. Every manager should have their own system and play style in the game and formation, which should transfer across with them to different teams that they join. So it'd be nice as well when you come across a certain club in a few years into your save and they play a completely different way that they play to at the start of your save. That's because their manager's changed. I think this would just freshen the game up completely. Also, retiring managers get replaced by retired players that turn into managers, kind of like their regens. That'd be a cool feature as well. And these managers should be able to transfer across club and international football, and also between men and women's football as well. You should also get managers who are unemployed as well, and would mean that EA need to add more managers into the game. But this would really freshen the game up, and I do have a suspicion that this is coming very soon, because this is in EA's college football game that they've released recently, and I have also heard a rumor that a manager market is potentially coming in the next game, but who knows. But I do think that is something that is going to come soon, but EA need to get that right, because it could break the game if they get a massive thing like this wrong. Next up, I've got fixed international football. Again, another video. We've got a playlist for all this sort of stuff, but we need to see every international team and competition in the game. Now, EA don't need to license everything. They can add these in generic. I have no issue with seeing generic nations, generic competitions. It shouldn't be that hard for EA, because there's only, there's like 200 nations, which in comparison to how many clubs they have in the game, they have hundreds of teams in the game. So I don't think this should be too hard if the EA actually put work into it. In terms of the competitions, again, there's like a dozen that they could add, but the fact that they don't have the Copa America, the Nations League, AFCON, the Gold Cup, the Confederations Cup, all these different tournaments, these are really important to football. They don't even have the right format for the Euros or the World Cup, so I think EA really need to step it up. eFootball have way more nations in their game than EA do, and I think that's kind of telling, to be honest, how bad EA have incorporated this aspect of the game. I would also like, when it comes to international improvement, to be able to start my save as an international manager, and also be able to manage a nation without a club as well. Next up, we've got historical stat tracking. Again, another video out, but after every season, it would be good to be able to track player stats, players' growth, all the results in your save, what games you won, which games you lost, historical tables, being able to see which clubs won the league every season or won every tournament, which teams were relegated and promoted. I'd also like to see like the historical transfers. So if you go onto a player, you can see which clubs they've played for in your save. We'll also be able to go through past transfer windows and see which transfers happened. Also be able to go through like your calendar, look back at old matches, and also click on them, see the match stats, like who scored in that match, like who played, what the match ratings were. Again, that would be a nice thing to look back at. And finally, also player awards as well. So if you go into a player, you can see if they won the Ballon d'Or, if they've gotten the team of the season, which club trophies they've won. All these things would like really add depth to the game and add a bit of history and a bit of character to everything. You know, when you're signing a certain player, having a look at like how they've progressed in their career, or also just looking at your own players, track how many goals they've scored, how they've improved their stats throughout your save. I feel like this is a really popular feature that EA want into the game. Next up, I've got custom preseason friendlies. I might make a video about this in the future, but basically, most clubs don't play in preseason tournaments. It's only the big clubs that generally do that in the top leagues. Why can't we go through our calendar and just click on a date and then just add a friendly with whatever team that we want in the game? They don't need to have like an accept or decline aspect of it with the AI teams. Just be able to put it into the calendar, whatever friendly you want. That would just be such a simple and good way of customizing your preseason. I just don't think it's realistic that if you're a small club, win a couple of £1 million to your transfer budget. It just makes no sense. Also, with preseason friendlies, I want to see like less fans at the ground. I want to see like a really dull atmosphere, because that is realistically what happens in preseason. I think that would make that aspect of the game a lot more authentic. And also just having the ability to have as many as we want. Majority of clubs have way more than 3 preseason friendlies, so why can't we do that? Why can't we have like an unlimited subs bench with these games? I just think they need to redo preseason, to be honest with you. Next up, we've got player growth, and I think this needs a complete overhaul in the coming games. I'm going to make a full video about player growth. Just briefly to talk about it, it needs to be more based on performance. We need to see, you know, more accurate match ratings for particularly defensive players and substitutes, so that they grow just as well as, you know, every other player. I also want to see something done about potentials in the game, because every player reaches their potential. So in that aspect, because the database is full of just ridiculously good players after a few seasons, and I just don't think it's realistic at all. So I'd like to see either potential ranges incorporated or lower potentials in the database, or a system where some players don't reach their potential. And also players should hit like their peak and then hit their decline at different ages as well. You get some players that peak really early or some that peak really late. Just look at like Dele Alli and then Jamie Vardy, for example, just two completely different sides of things. Unfortunately, the game at the moment is very predictable, and players, you can predict like what rating players are going to be based on their starting overall, their age and their potential, because they grow to a certain speed where at 27 they reach their potential. I just don't want to see that in the game anymore. Every season, the database needs to be at a similar level of quality, and for every player that rises up the ranks, there should be a player that declines. That's how I think it should be. It should just be level, and EA need to analyze their actual database that they create and how players in real life like improve or get worse. But yeah, there'll be a more in-depth video about player growth, because it's a really, really big thing that EA need to sort out. Next up, I got realistic transfer fees. I've already touched on transfers in general, so I'll talk through anything transfer related quite briefly in this video. Young, high potential players are way too easy to buy in the game. They're really cheap. It's really easy to sign them off big clubs. They're just not that important to the AI clubs. They should be way harder to acquire and a lot more expensive. Then on the flip side, the older players that are declining, they shouldn't cost anywhere near as much as they do in the game. So that's something that EA should alter. The transfer fees, that can't be hard to do. EA just need to change the calculations in their game. Just look at transfer marks and how they are on there, and I feel like that should just make things easier. I also think that the transfer fees that you do for a player, they should be based as well on the length of contract of that player, the clubs that they're coming from, how happy the player is, you know, if they want to leave or not. Transfer values and transfer fees, that can't be something that's difficult for EA to fix. Also realistic wages. I know that EA can't leak official wages of players, but I do think that they need to put a bit more effort into getting them a little bit closer to reality. Football Manager has quite realistic wages on there. You know, if you look at like their database, that's probably a good indication of where EA need to improve the realism in their game. There are sites out there like Capology that have like roughly the wages of players as well. It's not like a lot of the ones that EA get wrong aren't like well kept secrets. You know, all these Man United players that are overpaid need to be overpaid in the game. You know, Messi, he's on 20 grand a week in the game, where it's public knowledge that he's on like 600 grand a week in the MLS. So these things need to be improved. There needs to be like an element of the game where your wage budget should actually come into play, where balancing the books, making sure that you're not overpaying players, that should come with an impact in the game. If you take over a team like Man United, for example, that overpay a lot of players, there should be a challenge in getting rid of those players. Otherwise, it's going to hinder your funds going forward in bringing players in. That's an element of the game that really needs to be improved. Also, when you sign up a youth academy player, at least in the Championship or in the Premier League, from what I've experienced, they get like 10 grand a week straight away. Yet when you sign players from other leagues that are like in the mid 70s, they'll like accept a wage of like 10-15 grand a week. So the wages in the game are all over the place, and they've gotten a lot worse this year, and I don't really know why. I also want to see realistic budgets. So lower teams in the pyramid, you know, those League One, League Two teams, you know, the Irish teams, the Scandinavian clubs, they have like multi-millions to spend in the game, which just isn't realistic. A lot of these clubs rely on free transfers a lot of the time, so I want to see that reflected in the game. On the flip side, there should be that massive jump to the Premier League, where when you get promoted from the Championship to the Premier League, you get like a massive budget all of a sudden. I took over a Championship team that has barely any money to spend in real life. They had like a 10-15 million pound budget in the Championship, yet when we got promoted to the Premier League, we only got a 30 million pound budget. So EA are getting both of those completely wrong, so that needs to be improved. And again, each club should have like a budget, and it shouldn't dramatically change. You know, if a club has a wage budget, that should stay essentially the same. If that club stays in the same league, is getting the same revenue year after year, it shouldn't just increase year after year like it does in the game. And yeah, that comes on to my next point of football economy / budgeting. So again, there needs to be set budgets for clubs, and depending on whether they go up the leagues or down the leagues or get European football or get a takeover, there should be factors that change this, but in general they should have to stick to a budget. If we go more in depth, you know, FFP or PSR could be added into the game as well, but I don't really trust EA to add those in effectively. But in an ideal world, if we're putting across the perfect career mode, these are the sort of things that they need to look at. Again, FM will have these aspects of the game, or at least have it a lot closer to reality. Next up, I've got FC IQ improvement. I think the tactical system really needs an improvement, because as it stands, it's worse than what it was in the past. You know, the fact that you can't adjust player positions or create your own formations is a problem, and EA really need to sort that out. Why they couldn't just keep the old tactical system, but just give us a playstyle in possession and out of possession that we can tweak ourselves? Why that wasn't just the way forward, I will never know. But in terms of also I want to see more tactics as well regarding the team. So I want to be able to customize set pieces, have like actual long throw tactics, be able to pick which players go up for long throws and corner and free kicks. I want to see like a full tactical system where you customize like pressing, how many players rush into the box on crosses, and where players move in certain situations. I think, yeah, the tactical system is so bare bones this year, honestly. FC IQ needs massive improvement, and again, I'll probably make another video about that. I also want to see competitive transfers, so I want to see more clubs battling over players. So for example, if I've got a £20 million offer accepted for a player and I'm about to negotiate with them, if another club comes in with a £25 million offer, my deal should break down unless I offer the same amount of money to the selling club. The same with a player. If there's a free agent on the market, you should have a load of clubs basically trying to one-up each other on the contracts that they're offering. Again, this element of the game would make it more interesting and more difficult to sign the players that you want. And there should be that back and forth where you're getting updates constantly, hearing that other clubs are offering certain things to players and that you need to improve on that, and you need to win the battle to sign the player. I think this should really be in the game. Realistically, if I'm Bournemouth and I'm trying to sign a player and then Real Madrid come in for them, I shouldn't be able to sign that player, or it should be extremely difficult. And next, I've got more clauses in transfers and contracts. Now, again, I made a full transfer video about these, so I'll just briefly go through them. But for transfers, I want buyback and loan back to seller clauses, also rising fees and instalments. For loans, that would come with loan fees, obligation to buy clauses and recall options. And then for contracts, relegation, release clauses, you know, wage increases or bonuses based on club performance, and 1-year extension options as well. Next up, we've got a few things regarding the Youth Academy, which I feel like would be possible as well, and I'll make another video about the Youth Academy side of things as well. But I would love to be able to demote players into the Youth Academy, or be able to call those players up for one-off games. So isn't it annoying when you have like an FA Cup game, for example, against a lower league team, you want to call up these Youth Academy players to test them out, give them a bit of first team football, and also just rest your first team players, but then you're stuck with them in the team, and then when you're playing all your league games or whatever, you can't put them in the team. You know, they're not good enough, and then they're just rotting there instead of playing in the youth team. So I'd like to be able to call players up for one-off games, or on the flip side, be able to promote them and then be able to demote them back into the Youth Academy. Either way, I think that would be a massive improvement. I'd also like to see a larger name pool and face pool for youth players. Again, something like that should be quite easy, to have a bit more variety on the players' names and how they look coming through the Youth Academy. Another thing that would make a massive difference, that should be really easy for EA to add, is be able to fully edit the appearance of each academy player. These players are generic at the end of the day, so why can't I edit their hairstyle, their beard, add tattoos to them? Even going as far as changing their name or their facial structure. I know it's not realistic, of course, but these are generic players. Like, who cares? It's an offline mode. Why can't EA fully let us customize these things? Nothing's worse than getting a youth player come through who's really talented, but they just don't look like a real person. at all. So yeah, something like that would just make a big difference in my opinion. Next up, I got live start points improvements. Again, another video that I've made, but it was a decent addition to the game, I won't lie, but it can be improved. They should be able to add more leagues into the game with this feature available. Because realistically, just keeping track of the data from real life, it can't be that hard. Like, EA is a massive company. You're telling me there isn't somebody who can keep track of a few more leagues in the game? You know, like the Dutch League, the Saudi League, the MLS. There's some like pretty big leagues that don't have this feature, so I think that should be looked at in the next game. Also, when you have a save in live start points, obviously it updates the competitions that you're in to match real life, but all the other competitions in the game, they don't have this feature carry on with them, which is just really unauthentic. So for example, if you have a live start point save in the Premier League, the Championship tables, the Spanish tables, the German tables, they won't match real life, which makes no sense whatsoever because this feature exists for those leagues. So again, that's something that EA need to fix. Otherwise, it's just going to completely ruin the experience. Also, I'd like to be able to carry custom squads into a save with this feature as well. So if I want to edit a player to make them better or worse, I should be able to have those in live start points as well. Or at least, again, have a database editor to be able to do this. Next up, I've got change kits. Now, I know that there is licensing issues around creating kits for real clubs. So I understand that there might be an issue. In an ideal world, I'd love, even so, for example, with Arsenal, who have Adidas as their manufacturer, to be able to use a different Adidas template each season for their kit. Something like that would be unreal, and even just keep the same sponsor. That would really freshen things up. I hate using the same kit every season, but I do understand, to be fair to EA, that this is not an easy thing to add in terms of licensing. But why can't we just have retro kits back in the game? They're literally an ultimate team, and yeah, EA are so greedy they won't put it into career mode because it won't help them financially. We used to have a catalogue in the game where you could buy retro kits, and they were really good to use, like every once in a while to switch up the kit that you're using every season. Why can't we have more of those in the game? If EA can still add them into Ultimate Team, add them into career mode, for God's sake. Even if EA went down the route of adding microtransactions into career mode, retro kits could be something that they gain from. I don't really like the idea, but if they were to charge a few pounds for a bundle for each club, people would buy that. People would buy retro kits, honestly. Next up, we've got dynamic atmosphere. So games with like more importance, or if you're playing in a derby, than a preseason friendly or like just a midweek night match in like the Carabao Cup or something. Also being able to like adjust the attendances of games. This is something that you can do in a live editor, so why can't we do it? Why can't I have empty seats in those boring mid-table matches and preseason friendlies, but then have a full house and a really loud atmosphere in those more important games? I think this would be something that would improve the game. This should also reflect on like goal celebrations and things. Like some goals are more important than others, so I think the celebration should be a little bit different. Next up, I've got have your own contract in the game. Even as a manager, I think you should have to sign a contract with a club, and that's where like you agree to your targets, which will affect your budget as well. I want to be able to negotiate with the board every once in a while. You should also be able to run this contract down and be unemployed as well. So again, yeah, whether you're signing a 1-year deal or a 3-year deal, that should be in the game in my opinion. And the next point, which I've just mentioned, is also start a save unemployed. Why can't you let your save progress while you're waiting for the right offer to come in? I think that should be a thing in the game. You know, if you get sacked from a club and there's no like job offers that you really fancy, why have you got to be forced to take one? Why can't you just wait for the right one? Also, I already mentioned start a save with an international team and also manage a country without being part of a club. That is, of course, if they actually make international football worth playing in the game, which again is another video I've made. Also be able to apply to any job in the world. Generally, you get job offers from teams of a similar rating to you or slightly above if you're doing a good job at your team. So I understand that aspect of things. But what if you're like a top manager managing a top team and you've got a really good reputation, but you want to go and join like your boyhood club or like a lower team that you like in real life? And if you've won everything, it's kind of hard to like go somewhere after that. So why can't you apply to any club in the game? I feel like that should give a bit more freedom as to what to do. I'd also like to see a bit more realism with free agents. So we should see more on the market every summer and a lot more competition in terms of signing them. They should also demand higher fees, you know, signing fees, because that is what happens in real life as well. Set asking prices for players. So I've already spoke about this briefly in my transfer video, but we should be able to set a price to indicate how much we value a player in our squad. So for example, if you've got a £10 million player in your team that you value a lot more than that and you're sick of getting transfer offers for them, you can maybe set your asking price to like 20 million. But on the flip side, if you've got a player, that same player in the team that you're desperate to get some money at the end of a window and you're not getting any transfer offers for them, you can set an asking price for like 6 or 7 million and maybe more teams will come in for them because they're getting a better deal. Again, that would just increase or decrease the amount of offers you get for certain players, which I think would be quite good. Next up, I've got real life competition rules. So for example, like financial fair play, also homegrown player quotas. There are some, in a lot of leagues, you have to have a certain amount of players in your squad who actually have the nationality of that league. Also, actually having to submit a 25-man squad. Again, that's something that happens in real life. Loan transfer limits, so you can't just loan in like 20 players into your team, which just isn't realistic in some leagues and isn't possible. Also, when it comes to suspensions as well, a player will get a straight red card and then be suspended for 1 game. That just isn't what happens in real life. I also want to see additional training into the game, so kind of like the old style training, where you can just put a player and have them do extra work on certain attributes of their game. I'd like to see this put into career mode as well. For those players that aren't really playing that much football for you, but you want to improve them behind the scenes, you should be able to hire an additional coach. Obviously, it'll come out of your budget, and you should be able to put players through extra training to be able to improve them behind the scenes. Now, this will also drain their energy, so if you want to start playing that player and put them through additional training, obviously they're going to be like really tired as well. So that'd be something that'd be, I think, beneficial to the game, which I can talk about in more detail if I do a training video. Development, a few things that I want to see with development plans. A nice like feature that I've not seen anyone mention is set a timer on development plans. So do you ever get like those players that there's loads of attributes you want to improve them on? Well, you should be able to set a timer, let's say for 8 months, until they get to a certain overall, and then you'll get like a notification to say, oh, you've set this timer, do you want to change their development plan? And you can go and do that. It means as the player gets closer to their potential, you're not going to limit them potentially growing in other stats that you think they should. Also, maybe a few more plans, or be able to customize your own plans. Again, it's an offline mode, I don't know why we can't. Also, when it comes to players training in a new position, they should grow a lot quicker if you're playing in that position and they're playing well. Again, there should be a bit of an impact from real life when it comes to training and player improvements. The same should be said when it comes to like, if their finishing is really low, but they've got a good conversion rate in the game and they're scoring a lot of goals, that should impact their shooting stats, but I know that's going to be quite complicated for EA to add. A simple one, but I want to see more search filters in the game. So more of like a tick box system, so you can search for multiple positions. You can search for like height, the contract length of a player, their strong foot. Again, why aren't these in the game? It would make it a lot easier to search for particular players. I mentioned already with the contracts, but I'd like to be able to negotiate board targets at the start of the season. These should affect your budget. So if at the start of the season you promise to deliver better results, you'll get a better budget to be backed in doing that. I also want to see board objectives be more reliant on results on the pitch. Like if you deliver what the club needs to be doing on the pitch in the league, winning trophies and things, but you're not signing free players from Honduras or doing your brand objectives, it shouldn't really matter that much. They should just be like small things on the side. I think there should be more of an importance on what's happening on the pitch. Also remove AI clubs refusing to sell players. When you request to sign someone and it just flat out says they refuse to sell them because they're too important, that makes no sense. Every player has a price in the game. They should just be more expensive. I want to see different sliders for away games as well, because they should be harder than home games. I see, especially in simulated games, I don't know if it's just me, but away games seem to be easier than home games. They're at least the same anyway, at the very least, and they shouldn't be. You should feel the effect of going to another club stadium and playing there. That should be an element of the game that adds a lot more realism. Also, AI clubs having academies. So when you're playing against them in Rush, I don't think those players actually reach the save in any other aspect, but you should be able to go to other AI club academies and be able to actually see who they've got. Also, when you release a player from your youth academy, they should go into another club's academy. If they're not good enough, they should, basically go down to a lesser club. So then you can still actually track a player that's left your academy and just see how well they actually do in their career, and also potentially be able to sign them back. And again, that would be like kind of a cool feature to see, when it comes to stat tracking, see actually which players came from which academy. You might find a player that's really good in your save and then realise that they came from your academy and you let them go when you shouldn't have. And this kind of leads on to my next point, which is youth academy transfers. Again, those really high potential players shouldn't be at lower academies. They should be getting poached by some of the bigger academies, and then those players that aren't quite good enough for those top clubs, they should then move down and go into the academies of lesser clubs and make a bit of a better impact there. And to stop the database from getting overpopulated, which I think obviously could happen, you should get a lot of like the really, really bad players just retiring out of the save. Those players that get rejected by League 2 clubs, for example, they should obviously not stay in the game. Otherwise, you're going to have a load of 30 rated free agents, which nobody needs. Next up, we've got player knocks. So we've already obviously got injuries, but I also just want to see like players being unavailable for like a few days or a week. You know, if you're playing a lot of games, maybe they get cramp, you know, maybe they just struggle with fitness a little bit. That should be something in the game as well. It feels like whenever there's a player, whenever there's an injury, you're kind of holding your breath that it's not going to be for multiple months, where in reality, injuries are really common in real life, but sometimes they just need to be rested for a couple of games. Again, this would just encourage a rotation within your squad and using all the different players that you've got. And next, we've got AI clubs going into debt and getting financial takeovers. Again, this would be quite good for storylines in your game, to see teams fall down the ranks and just completely fall apart. On the flip side, there's teams that get financial takeovers and rise up the leagues. This happens in real life, so why not in the game? Again, database editor, we should be able to do that. If manager transfers were to be in the game, they probably need to have manager stats to show how good those managers are and which clubs they should go to. But maybe if managers had different qualities, like if they're better at organising defences or attacking play, man management, player development, in-game management, these stats could go up and down during their career, you know, how they progress and things, and also impact how their teams play and maybe what players benefit from playing under those managers. And better player conversations. Again, just a bit more in depth, maybe an actual cutscene where you're actually speaking to the player in your office, and then a bit of a back and forth where you have multiple like replies and things like that. Again, I feel like the whole thing is a little bit like narrow and it's not very flexible. I feel like you should have more options to reply to certain requests and certain things in the game. Next up, I've got a few changes that I want to make to goal updates when you're playing games in career mode. I want to be able to go into the menu and actually look myself at the results instead of relying on them to pop up on screen. I want to actually just check whenever I want in the menu. I feel like that's quite a simple thing that which would be good. Also, on the final day of the season, to get actually more commentary on the impact of certain goals in games. So, for example, if you're in a relegation battle and another team you're fighting against scores in their other game, you should see like the commentary should comment on this and maybe have like a live league table like as it stands, and see like how the goals impact where those teams are on the table. That would add a lot of immersion into those important games at the end of the season. And also, more cutscenes wouldn't go amiss. I don't think they're that difficult for EA to add in. I mean, look at the Journey and Volta, how many they added in every year there. So some ideas I've got in terms of manager career mode would be like live cup draws. Not necessarily the whole draw, but maybe just to see when your fixture gets announced. That'd be decent. More around like transfer announcements, like, you know, them holding their shirt up, have like different announcement videos like what you see in real life. More trophy celebrations. They need to improve those, to be honest with you. There needs to be a bit more emotion around those. Possibly like players getting like big injuries, to see them in rehab, to get like a feel of how bad those injuries are, and also like build up for big games. So if you're playing in a derby or you've got a cup final or like just a big league game coming up, there should be a little bit of build up. You know, you should see it on social media, you should see maybe within the dressing room how players are kind of getting hyped for it. Again, these things will just add more immersion. I mentioned in my transfer video, but next up, with contract offers, be able to send these across as a full package rather than having to choose the year, the role, the wage step by step and agree on everything. There needs to be more flexibility. You know, if I want to offer a player a 1-year deal and they want a 2-year deal, I should be able to offer a better wage in order to get that aspect of the contract that I want. I feel like there needs to be a bit more flexibility and be able to offer all this at the same time. A few more things about manager customization improvements. So it'd be nice to have like more hairstyles, tattoos. Also, there's like a load of Volta clothing that never made career mode, and that would be kind of cool to see. Also, be able to scan your face into the game goes without saying. I think with cranium technology that will come very soon, but that'd be obviously a good thing for the game. Also, when a player is unscouted, instead of seeing a question mark where their overall would be, you should see like a range. So you should see that this player is between 68 and 72 overall or whatever, and all of their stats. So you get an idea of how good they are, and then when you scout them, these numbers narrow down until you can see everything in full. Again, I don't know why there's a question mark. You should just get a brief idea of how good a player is without scouting them, and then obviously as they're getting scouted, you should see more and more, like get an idea of how good they are. Next up, we've got slider presets. So I want to be able to save different sliders to the game and be able to jump from one to the other, because I think sometimes like your sliders in different scenarios should be different. For example, for away games, why can't I set sliders for an away game and make them a little bit harder, and then be able to jump from that to home games? Or in like a men's career mode compared to women's career mode, I feel like the way that the games feel should be different, and we should be able to set different presets for the sliders. So again, that'll be like something cool instead of just manually changing every single slider time after time. I think this would be like another useful little feature. World rankings for nations and clubs should be in the game. Again, I spoke about this in my international football video, but yeah, I'd also like to see that. Just to track the progress of different nations, and if you manage a small nation in the game, you know, if they added all of them into the game, hypothetically, it'd be cool to see you rise up the ranks potentially as well. Real life free agents. Again, I don't really expect this one to licensing, but at the start of the season, you do get some players that are unemployed that are really good, that would be good to sign in career mode, and it would be realistic as well, instead of signing like the Mexican or Qatari players that aren't actually free agents in real life. But even if you add these players in as like generic, but you can tell which players they are, they just have a different name, and then maybe you can edit them. Again, that would be like decent, I suppose. Another thing, which would be, this should be higher on my list honestly, but change career mode settings in the middle of your save. You know those settings that you just can't alter? You know, you can't alter how quickly players grow after you've started your save. You can't give yourself a financial takeover after your save. You can't adjust like the board difficulty after you start. Like, I think you should be able to adjust all these afterwards. I don't get why the game doesn't allow this. Also be able to set manager animations. So if you want to customize, if your player's quite calm, you know, he doesn't really celebrate for goals or doesn't really shout, or you get like the managers that are really animated on the touchline and, you know, running around celebrating and stuff. Again, I'd like to see that in the game and, you know, see a little bit more footage of them on the touchline during games. Okay, we're getting towards the last few now, but academy coaches, again, like be able to hire the academy coaches. So depending on how good they are, that will decide like how quickly the players in your academy will grow. Team chemistry, I mean, it's something that's low down on this list because I think it'd be hard to implement. But if you're rotating your squad constantly, that should reflect the way that your team plays. They shouldn't have a big chemistry. On the flip side, if you've got a back four that have played together the whole season, they should have like strong links between each other and like a good understanding. Again, that should be something that would add more things to think about when you're putting your team together, especially if you're simulating games as well. It would give the game a lot more of a manager feel. And also, like, just see the results and stats from every competition in the world. Currently, you can only do this with the competitions that you're in, but I'd like to see what's going on all around the world. Like, again, you can do it in Football Manager. And also, having to balance how often you play young players, because a lot of the time in real life, if you play a teenager constantly every week, they might develop long-term injuries and it might ruin their career in the long term. So again, that should be something that you should have to balance and make sure that you're not overplaying players. That should be something that you should have to either risk or maybe be a bit more cautious about. Another small one, but seeing like player stats and like their development in the team management, that'd be like another like alright like small feature. Next up, club history, to see like the historic tables, the trophies, the club records, so you can see as like a manager or a player like how you can like create your own legacy, how you can like break records within the club and like reach new heights with them. This one again should probably be a bit higher up, but extend the maximum save in the game from 15 to 30 seasons. Again, like most careers between players or managers, or of course if you're a player then a manager, it's longer than 15 seasons, so I think that should be extended. Even if it means we can have less saves in the game because of memory or whatever, I think that this should be a thing. And player motivations, so players moving to different clubs based on their own aspirations. So if they want to chase trophies, if they want money, if they want to build a personal brand, if they want to stay at a club their whole career and become a legend, these things would also be like a nice feature in the game to decide like what decisions players make in their career and how you manage them in your save. And increase the squad limit size in your club. As long as, like I say, you have a 25-man squad, why can't, I mean, if you're managing Chelsea, for example, they have like 100 players out on loan. Why isn't that in the game? Because you get all these players for big clubs and they don't actually play for those clubs in the game because they can't fit them in the squad. So they just, instead of being out on loan, they're like permanently at the wrong clubs, which kind of makes no sense. Another thing, like within the menu, this is a bit more further down the line, but we've already seen AI interviews be announced for FC, but why can't we get like AI like commentary like in the menus, potentially like a feature you can turn on and off? Or if you go into social media, see like videos of like pundits talking about what's going on in your save, or like have like podcasts or like radio stations where fans call in and talk about your club. Again, this is like well down the line and this isn't a priority at all, but I did see this get suggested somewhere and I think it would be like cool for like the future, you know, once EA do get the basics right in the game. So, you know, AI is going crazy these days, you know how Spotify has like AI DJs and podcasts and things. So I think that is something that EA might work towards in the future after player interviews. Another simple one that the community all want is when EA put new faces, stadiums and kits into the game, they should go into existing career mode saves that you've already created. At the moment, they don't update on them, and this is probably something we can't have with the current engine because EA should have probably updated them if they would have already. But this used to be a thing in pairs, so I don't know, maybe it's something to do with the engine. And with lone players, you should be able to negotiate squad roles. So if they're going to be a rotation player, you should tell them from the get-go, and that means that the clubs that are loaning them out won't get wound up when you're not playing them that often. The practice arena in career mode, so again, have practice matches between your squad, be able to practice set pieces. Again, like a little thing that would be pretty decent. be able to negotiate releasing players. So instead of just having a set fee, you should be able to negotiate that with them. AI clubs transfer and loan listing players more often. Again, letting more players running down their contracts to become free agents. That should be something that reflects real life a little bit more as well. I'd also like to be able to send multiple youth scouts to one country. Again, you can only do it one for one country, but why can't I send 2 or 3 scouts to England if I'm an English club? Like that should, again, that's something like quite simple. When a transfer collapses, we shouldn't have to wait a week or however long it is to renegotiate. You know, if it's transfer deadline date and the negotiation breaks down, why can't I just go back and have it be more difficult to negotiate? Why can't I go back and just offer a really good deal then to get the transfer over the line? I don't really understand this. Again, it just restricts you in the game. And when it comes to create a club, I think there needs to be better kit customization, more flexibility on, you know, choosing every color of every part of the shirts, and also be able to add sponsors onto your shirt as well, even if they're just like generic made up. This should also apply for unlicensed clubs. You know, like the Milan clubs this year, they were unlicensed in the game. Why can't we edit their kits? That kind of makes no sense. PES used to have that in the game where you could edit everything about unlicensed clubs, their name, their kits, their badge, everything. And again, I kind of mentioned before, but I think there should be different sliders and atmosphere for the women's games and the women's career mode that resembles more like what happens in real life. And also regarding the youth academy, for more realism, there should be a youth intake at the end of every single season where you get a bunch of players into your academy. There should also be like an under 21s team and under 19s and under 17s. There should be like multiple teams where players have to graduate onto the next level or get released if they're not good enough. Also, when it comes to the American clubs, there needs to be an MLS draft system as well. Again, like something a bit better for depth in the MLS. I'd also like to be able to export squads and players from career mode into the main menu. So, for example, if you get like a really good regen, why can't you export them out into the main menu and then use them in like another save or something? Like, again, this should be allowed when it comes to the offline side of things, or even just in kickoff mode. Why can't I use one of my squads against another from another save? Again, I don't see the issue with this. Another simple thing, but when you loan a player, they should be unavailable to play against their parent club. I don't get why when I loan a player out, they're like playing against me. It just doesn't happen in real life. Also, when you loan a player out, you should be able to track their playing time, their development, their stats. Also, threaten to recall them from a club if they're not playing them enough. And when it comes to pre-season and they add tournaments in the game, why not add like real life tournaments like the Audi Cup, the Emirates Cup, the Asia Premier League Trophy? Not a big one, but I thought I'd mention it just in case. And then finally, and again, these are like the less important features in the game, but manage as an icon. So like Beckham, Kaka, Maldini, they're all in the game, so why can't you use them? But yeah, that is everything. I don't know how many features that was, but it was a lot, and I'm getting out of breath now, and the video is getting quite long. So please, if you've made it to the end of this video, thank you, appreciate that. Please leave a like. Comment like I say at the start of the video, comment what features you want to see the most in the game. Subscribe if you haven't already. Check out all my other videos. Like I say, I've got a playlist for my actual full wish list when it comes to FC26 and the future games in this franchise, going into a little bit more depth, so that'll be there as well if you want to go and check that out. But yeah, thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.